first match of the day here for Hearthstone Grandmasters Asia-Pacific is going to be Glory versus Posesi Gia. As I was just saying, two of the strongest players that we've seen here thus far. But one of the interesting things that you always get when practice partners go up against each other is how they shift their deck archetypes overall, because generally the Japanese players were bringing all the same decks week after week. But here, are we seeing anything different from these players?
I think maybe last week was the exception where Posesi and Alutamu didn't actually the same list because they were facing each other. But now Glory and Posesi facing each other still have the same archetypes, including the all-important Druid, which I think is the deck that Japanese players probably have a higher opinion of in general compared to the rest of the field in APAC, and especially the rest of the Grandmasters field. We are going to see a few differences in the tech choices, though. In Druid, I'm already seeing the big one being Glory is still including Ysera, whereas Posesi is not. And in large part, this is influenced by the other players in a weekend. And we do have that kind of different dynamic compared to the Swiss portion, where players already know who they will be facing in advance and can somehow prepare specifically for certain players.
It's a great point you bring up. Glory yesterday playing up against Kin includes Ysera in his lineup and the Zephyrus in his zoo, I believe, as well. Unless I am mistaken. No, yeah, he was the Zephyrus version of zoo as well in his list, which I think is a very cool way, like you said, of predicting your opponent's slow control-y style and exploiting them because of that. But overall, I really like your points about the Druid, because I think it's a fine bring, but you have to know exactly what you are expecting. And it also kind of warps the metagame overall, because you're expecting your opponents to bring Druid. Like, for example, how Rogue is a decent deck to bring in other regions, but maybe less so here because of the abundance of Druid overall.
Right.
It really does just have these very severe, harsh matchups against some of the other decks that really warp the metagame.
And I really love how the regions come up with their own metas, because we are a little bit more insular in APAC, I would say, each country having their own practice groups, and it comes up with a much more dynamic meta, I would say. But of course, the one thing that we can expect to be seeing a lot, no matter what region you end up on, is the Demon Hunter Mirror, the first matchup that we're going to be seeing today. So, of course, got to talk about the tech choices and what's different here. And what stands out to me is that Glory has still got a one of Sightless Watcher, whereas Posesi has the one of Spectral Sight in that slot.
Yeah, personally, I've got to say I'm not so much a fan of the Sightless Watcher anymore. We saw it used by Samuel Sao, I believe, as one of the main players who still believes in the power of the Sightless Watcher, and it worked out okay for him over the weekend, it's got to be said. But I think just giving yourself more consistency in your card draw rather than choosing the effect off the top is just that little bit more important.
Could be indeed, but the other 29 cards in the deck are exactly the same. So if there's going to be a difference in the favorability of the deck's chest-based build, it's going to be marginal. Posesi, however, going first with the Battle Fiend and Twin Slice already locked up. Pretty good start, but Shadow Weaver is online for Glory, as well as the Satyr Overseer.
Very good start indeed, but Glory has a slightly different approach, obviously without the one-drops, but still very respectable in its own right. The Frozen Shadow Weaver, time and time again, we have just seen it so crucial, whether it locks down turn 3 for the Satyr Overseer, turn 5 for the Glaive-bound Adept. It is just always a devastatingly powerful card.
Yes, indeed. Posesi, he drew the Battle Mage off the top and played that over the Battle Fiend, which I really like. I think that in the early turns, you want to get the higher attack minion down, and also if it draws out removal from the opponent, you'd much rather have the Battle Fiend later on. But there is the difficult question now of whether he wants to cede a little bit of the tempo on board in order to get the Outcast Spectral Sight guaranteed.
So on the next turn, if he goes Battle Fiend here, it could be Twin Slice Chaos Strike on the following turn, or just Chaos Strike. Like, he has the ability to fairly quickly set up for the Spectral Sight to go out at the left-hand side of his hand.
Yes. There's also the thing he needs to think about is the ability for Glory to coin out his own threat, and he already knows that there's a second slice in hand. So if there is the Satyr over, Posesi is thinking, well, at least I have Chaos Strike to deal with the first half, but it might be a little bit slow to deal with the other half.
Wow. Glory is also thinking now, my opponent kept 2 cards in the starting hand. or has 2 cards left that they kept in the starting hand, and they just didn't play either. What could those be? And the answer is very possibly Twin Slice. It's a card you always keep in this matchup, and so he doesn't want to just go for the Satyr Overseer to allow it to be killed off.
And Glory, very smartly, I think, still goes for Frozen Shadow Weaver despite Posesi not showing any weapons on board. Because when Demon Hunter doesn't have any minions, their number one for trying to get the board back is attacking your minions, and then generally the minions that they play on that turn benefit off of the attack. So this is shutting off Posesi's plan 2 ends by Glory.
Yeah, I really like this. Basically, any play that Posesi has becomes worse with this line rather than Overseer first. Because say Posesi had his own Satyr Overseer plus Twin Slice, he just takes out the opposing one, and all of a sudden you're left not that far ahead on board at all.
Hey, and here Posesi is going to be able to spend all his mana for development, but coming up with a 1/6 Battle Fiend with a 4/3 on the opposing side probably doesn't feel too good. However, we can see from Glory that if he wants to play Overseer Second Slice, it's not enough damage to kill off the 1/6.
And therefore, I think I'm just partial to going for the Umberwing. The Satyr Overseer is far from a priority. We've seen time and time again how this is not only a powerful card when played on turn 3, especially when you have the Warglaives of Azzinoth in hand. That can just very easily transition to a turn 4 play to set up for the Warglaives, or a turn 6 play even, after you've played the Warglaives in order to guarantee yourself a bunch of 2/2s.
That's right. There is the option to still go for it now with, say, Second Slice, but then it doesn't actually allow Glory to kill any additional minions. So the Second Slice of the Beaming Sidekicks are too high of a health, and we already said that so is the Battle Fiend. So I'm also partial to the Umberwing. The downside is that it creates 2 1/1s that are just begging to be eaten up by these sidekicks, but then Glory still has the natural weapon charge to clear up at least one of them later on.
There was even some consideration of just going for killing off the sidekicks instead, with both the Shadow Weaver and the weapon, but I guess the fact that you have a 6 health minion on board that you don't have an immediate answer for is a little bit of a scary prospect.
It would also involve using Second Slice for that, which I feel is too much of an expenditure. But Posesi now is going to be developing his own board. No Altruist in sight for Glory. This is going to be quite annoying.
Yeah, only being able to take out 1 a turn, for the moment at least, is annoying.
Hide behind your circles. I will still find you.
And we are seeing that kind of slow play of the Satyr Overseer again. I believe we saw this from Chonsu yesterday, where he just holds back on the Satyr Overseer time and time again. Because while it can be a very powerful card in the matchup, you have to know when to play it.
I love the face attack from Glory here. He knows that if he takes a trade with the Cane, he is essentially not pressuring Posesi very much, because the Cane would go down to 4 health, and say the Glaive-bound Adept would come down this turn from Posesi, it would still end up killing the Cane, and Glory in that case just misses 3 damage. No Adept nor Warglaives in sight for Posesi though, so he is just going to continue developing the board, and here we're gonna see the Demon Hunter boards just ignoring each other. I think Posesi's line is a bit more warranted because he has potentially Altruist with Slice next turn.
Now the question becomes very, very difficult for Glory. Warglaives is there and ready to go to clear up the vast majority of this board, especially if you factor in the Second Slice. He could take out 5 of these minions, but then his weapon is gone, which is far and away the best way he has to make a tempo swing back into the game.
Especially since freeing up the Skull of Gul'dan involves playing the Satyr Overseer. I guess he could go for it from the right side too, but it's dependent on what card comes off the top. I think I can get behind 1 charge used here. Alright, or 2. It's not bothering with the 1/1s. I like it. Whoa.
This is aggressive play, but the Frozen Shadow Weaver off the top, Gia. It's terrible mana utilization, but it's one of the best cards he could draw.
Yeah, I would agree. Locking out the Warglaives. I think Posesi does just go for this and says, you need Altruist to deal with this. Otherwise, my 5
Oh, yeah.
little guys are going to outpace your 1 medium-sized guy.
Ah, that classic question. Would you rather face 5 Fellwing-sized Canes or 1 Cane-sized?
Cane-sized Fellwing.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, I'd much rather face just the 1 Cane, because the 5 Fellwing-sized Canes are just dealing 2 more damage.
Mm-hmm.
The difference here, of course, the race is not all that simple, because after this turn of freeze, Glory's weapon will be online again, and it is dealing more damage than Posesi's. But Posesi, with the Altruist and potential draws off the top, could just deal the lethal next turn. Oh, I-beam! That is huge.
going to help with that. That is an insane draw.
The use of the freeze from Posesi here was very smart. Now Glory can't get his weapon online, all of these Twin Slices are not usable this turn, and he can't develop the Satyr Overseer for max value.
So obviously here Glory wants to go, ideally, for the double 3-drop so that he can set up Skull for next turn.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think he just has to play the I-beam here because he's so afraid of dying?
Well, the Frozen could freeze Posesi's own most threatening minion, but the way the game is shaped, I'm not even sure if he's gonna have the time to play Skull. Posesi is putting all of the pressure on Glory. How much is this? He's frozen, so that can't be activated. But he is just gonna go for some Altruist procs to help soften up the board.
Yeah, he can at least take 4 damage off the board.
You always freeze the face, Derek.
Demons.
It's just, I can never get over how good it is in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
The freeze is okay in the other matchups, it's not a bad card, but it's just game-winning in this matchup.
It really is. So if Posesi goes for Altruist double Twin Slice, he can trade off one of the Whelps and kill off the Frozen Shadow Weaver. I really don't think he wants to be trading another 3 minions into Kayn. You can probably just say, I'm at 14, you're showing 6. 8 from hand is not the easiest even for Demon Hunter to do. Right,
I like only
this.
trading away the 1.
Mm-hmm. Whoa! Lethal? Lethal. It is.
I think that's lethal!
It is!
Exact!
Because 3 slices, hero power is... Oh my gosh, 4 damage, 6 on board, and the last 4 from the glaive. That was a very specific combination of cards that Glory needed to have, so I don't fault Posesi for not playing around it, but my gosh, that is brutal.
But it's got to be said, Glory played not to this exact out, of course, but to this kind of situation where he draws lethal off the top. For the entire game, we're talking Kayn going face on turn 4.
Right.
The use of the weapon swing going face on the turn he played the Warglaives of Azeroth. We were not looking at that. I was looking at you take out the Battle Fiend and leave all 3 of the rest of the charges to set up for a huge play with the Satyr Overseer on the following turn. But his consistently damage-focused approach of going for the lethal outs at every point in the game was just a genius stroke that meant he was very deserving of winning that game.
Right, I think Glory might have had it calculated from early on that it would have to be 2 freezes from Posesi side or a freeze plus I-beam to stop that exact amount of damage, and Glory gave himself the time to draw into something like Glavebound Adept or Metamorphosis later on. And that line of holding on to the Warglaives for Satyr Overseer, I still think had a little bit of potential, but for that specific hand from Posesi, which had the Altruist to potentially sweep that board, it turned out Glory's line just shut off that counterplay from Posesi.
Very, very cool stuff. It's so interesting, I feel like, the dynamic between the 3 drops in the Demon Hunter mirror, because the Satyr Overseer can be so good, but it's so vulnerable, whereas the Shadow Weaver is just so solidly good in the matchup. I find it endlessly interesting, and I could go on about it for hours, but I shan't bore you. We're going to go to a break now before we continue with the rest of this series. Glory, a game up now, potentially looking to be the first player to go 4-0 here in the round robin. You're not going to want to miss this. We'll be right back.
That's insane! Boston just has the flick in hand!
Goodness gracious, Eddie. Not happy to see that.
What was his draw? Twin slice?
Oh
Wow.
my goodness. Oh my double goodness. We have a new member in the Hall of Champions.
That is the most insane thing I've ever seen happen in Hearthstone. Welcome back to Hearthstone Grandmasters here in the Asia-Pacific region. We are in our first game, right in the midst of it, with Glory up against Posesi, the old guard versus the new in terms of Japanese competitive Hearthstone. It feels like Glory has been the flag bearer for a while now, and he is doing a stellar job here in Grandmasters, up to 3-0 in terms of the round robin so far, and looking to get his fourth win on the table, Gia. But first of all, he's got to take a win with the Druid and the Zoo Warlock. Two decks which are pretty hot and cold, pretty hit and miss in terms of whether you're hitting the good or the bad hands.
Very true. The Scrap Imp, we've seen it time and time again, can mean all the difference between a blisteringly fast start or just a handful of basic and classic set one drops. It's so funny to see again sometimes. In the year 2020, we've got Stone Tusk Boar, Shield Bearer, Argent Squire. I love it. It's like Arena.
It is. It's a little bit too close to Arena, and then all of a sudden they're just playing 5D chess all of a sudden with the Scrap Imp because they're huge buffed up minions. I don't even think that's what that expression means at all, but I'm going to go with it anyway. And up for Posesi now, we are going to see him line up the Demon Hunter again to try and counteract that Zoo Warlock from Glory. We have seen this matchup generally go in favor of the Demon Hunter because even when the Zoo does hit the Dream Hand, you're still in with a good chance, I feel, of just out-tempoing them with your premium minions.
Oh, but look at this hand from Glory! He's got everything! He's got the Coin Scrap Imp. He's got Carpet for later on when he starts needing to rush and respond to what Posesi has. And meanwhile, Posesi doesn't even have a 1 or 2 drop to develop. And then the Hand of Gul'dan is already online for Glory if he top decks Expired Merchant.
It's
a
looking
big
good.
yikes.
Even if he doesn't find the Expired Merchant anytime soon, just tap on turn 2 and he's all but guaranteed to have 3 1-drops at least to buff.
Oh my gosh. Ratchet the head from Posesi says it all. He's thinking right there, why hasn't the nerf already hit?
Posesi, a scratch the head is as salty as I think we're ever going to see him, whereas for me, my PC would be well out the window at this point.
True enough. Oh my gosh. 4 1-drops to buff.
Yeah.
That is perfect
Yep, yep,
because
yep.
we've seen this interaction over and over from Zoo where oftentimes against Demon Hunter, you can't really afford to play Carpet even as a 3-8 just on its own on turn 3. It's far better to go for 3 1-drops. And now he doesn't even have to give up the lack of a 1-drop for the next turn because he's got the 4th.
That is exactly right. Carpet plus 3 drop on turn 4, plus the explosion of stuff on this turn. The only thing he's missing, oh my god, I was going to say, is the discard effect to get rid of the Hand of Gul'dan, but now second Imp. I do like he's not being greedy here. Now is the time to develop onto the board. But the refill is just there forever now.
Yep. White Walker makes this so awkward for Posesi. Oh, double slices, hero power, and then trade off his Battle Mage and his attack. He can still play his Frozen Shadow Weaver. And if he likes, the Battle Fiend can trade into the Fiendish Servant, and the Shadow Weaver can freeze whatever gets buffed.
He's realized, though, Gia, that using the second slice makes his Warglaives next turn significantly weaker. Because not only is it the 4 health minions that we see here, Magic Carpet is going to be a 3-8. That means 2 attacks instead of 3 with the Warglaives.
Yeah. And it also shuts off the option for just Glavebound next turn, the Battle Cry. But I think that
as well.
He's got to bite the bullet and fight for the moment. Of course, he doesn't know that Glory has hit not just the Giga Nuts, but the Turbo Giga Nuts with the Carpet to even follow up. Posesi's perspective, maybe just, you know, turboing onto the board as best as he could that turn could beat a non-Carpet hand, but he gets the bad news. And Glory's got to con on curve if he wants it to.
Warglaives is a powerful card here, for sure. But he's just going to take so much damage in the process. I'm very much unconvinced that it gets there. A twin slice off the top would have been a large boon. He could have taken out the entire board then, even if he took 1,000,000 damage in the process.
Well, for Posesi, probably just glaive down the two health minions.
Yeah.
And hope to twin slice for next turn.
Sounds good to me.
So the Turkhan on... Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Oh
Darok.
my god, Gia.
This is physically hurting me to watch. So painful. Okay, he can taunt up the Carpet as well, so that Posesi needs to swing into it a bunch of times before he can kill anything else. Or just play the Bloodfin Raptor, because turns out it wins in this spot.
I'm telling you, Gia, I think Glory has gone into like the Captain America style get buff machine, but it's the Captain America get good cards in your mulligan machine, because time and time again, he's just hitting the absolute dream. Doesn't matter if it's Druid, Warlock, whatever, he's got the goods.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, but not to discredit Glory, because he's been playing those hands pretty perfectly time and time again. I don't remember the last time he made a crucial error. We've seen maybe some careless mistakes, but nothing to the sloppiness of what we might see from the Division B players over at the bottom. Of course, it's not all bad news for Posesi. The last deck is Druid, which we keep saying tends to be unfavored versus Demon Hunter and Zoo.
Yeah, a couple of shaky matchups, of course, and a mirror. So there's still room for Posesi to turn this one around, make no mistake. But I like the point you bring up that he has been playing well, because I feel like this is the point in the cycle of Grandmasters, right slap bang in the middle now, where Glory is going to perform best. He's at a very comfortable record in the Swiss, but he's not really playing for any particularly huge glory at the moment quite yet, because he's not at the finals where if he wins, he goes to playoffs. This is very comfortable Hearthstone for him. He's all but guaranteed to not be relegated out at this point, which means he is extremely likely to get through to playoffs anyway. So there's no pressure. This is when he plays at his best. And I wonder if he can keep it up when it really matters when we come down to the playoffs matches.
So you're saying, what if Glory takes some losses to hone himself for the tough situations where he tends to struggle a little bit?
If that's what you want to take away from that, Gia, I'm not going to stop you.
All right. We do see, though, again, 2 pieces of the Turbo Nut Sand from Glory. Fungal Fortunes, Glowfly Swarm. He is 1 wild growth away from just absolutely dominating this series. But Posesi's got the Fungal of his own. That's a Mount Seller discarded.
Okay, that is bad.
It is indeed. I mean, Posesi's just got ramped for days. I'm looking at an early Mount Seller for Posesi, never mind the Glowfly.
Yeah, Posesi's actually got just an insane hand here. It's just whether or not he can weather the Glowfly, first of all, that is the real question. Glory presented with a pretty big choice here, whether you go Vate Overgrowth into Glowfly, or you just go for the draw. Much prefer the draw here because you get the Glowfly down in the same turn, but you have more cards. More cards in hand for more Glowflies.
Posesi with the Coin Overgrowth goes up to 6 mana next turn. You could then innervate his Mount Seller, which is just a little bit awkward because you only have 1 payoff spell at that point, but it is go time for Glory.
And the draw now for Posesi to have a real... Oh no, wait, he's not running the Starfall build at all even, despite cutting the Ysera.
Oh, okay.
So Glowfly is the best he's got?
Indeed. He could innervate Wrath alongside that. Saving grace for Posesi is that Glory doesn't have lethal yet on the backswing, but he's got Soul of the Fortress. He could just trade everything down and still end up with 6 minions.
Yeah, there are cards that would give Posesi a shot. If he had Innovate into Power of the Wild, then we'd be looking at a very real chance for him to just value trade for the rest of the game. But not like this.
Or you can start with a draw now, and if it's bad, he can still innervate Soul of the Forest. And if it's Savage Roar, that is just lethal. Oh, okay. Gonna go for the minion development instead.
Yeah,
this is
it's
fair.
also slightly more consistent.
So what are we looking at for Posesi in terms of miracle draws? Even an Iron Bark? I don't know.
Bulk Beam, Iron Bark, Crystal Power.
It's only one thing off the top, right?
So does the play now deviate, Gia, from the exotic Mount Seller on this turn? Because like you said, it's not that good here.
Yeah, he could just go for Wrath and trade 2 things instead. I think he's got a pretty decent read. There's no the Well or Savage Roar on the other side. So he could take the Turn of Pain to go for a larger swing.
Creatures.
Or he could be the Griffin God. That's not the one that you want!
Yikes.
You could taunt up the 2/2. I kind of like the look of that, so we could take a value trade right now. Oh no! Why are we seeing repeats of the worst beast?
It's Noah's Ark here this weekend at Asia-Pacific, because they come 2 by 2, it seems.
Power of the Wild. Pretty premium for Glory, but a lot of it has to be sunk into this Mount Seller.
Yeah.
That's the reason it up over the 2/2. Take a value trade. Pretty good in hindsight from Posesi. I mean, it's not bad though. You just have a bunch of 3/3s and a 4/3. He could use Crystal Power for damage.
What to do?
Looks like instead he's just going with the Rising Winds, I'd imagine, for another minion.
Yeah.
Given that he's got the Overgrowth in his hand and can dump a lot of spells next turn as well.
I think he's still going for Power of the Wild. And then he trades a 4, a 3, a 3, and a Moonfire. And that perfectly takes out the 11 health on this. Yeah. Very
It's
powerful.
great secret.
Oh, man, what can Posesi even get now? Okay, that's a good start. Yeah, take those.
Okay.
Could cycle a Wrath.
Was that definitely the play over Overflow? Because he really needs to set up for a huge Mount Seller turn, it feels like, at this point.
But The overflow heals Glory's minions.
It does. Yeah.
He still ends up with 4 draws going about it this way, right? 3 from the fungal, and 5 if you're going for the rising winds as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I guess the chance of discarding Mount Stellar is still fairly low with only 1 in the deck.
But Glory himself can go for overstrikes. He can dump an Iron Bark to make sure he doesn't overdraw any, for now at least.
Unless, of course, he wants to go for like Rising Winds and Overgrowth, just to make more tempo onto the board.
The problem is now for Posesi, he's used both Innervates and I believe an Iron Bark, so there's not very much off the top. Oh, okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah. He could go for even more card draw alongside the Mount Cellar to get Fog Beam.
I supply only the finest creatures.
But is that better than just playing Power of the Wild to buff another minion?
Well, he can start with Iron Buck, because I'm pretty sure that's
Right.
always happening, and
Agreed.
it's always going on the Mount Cellar.
Agreed. Very difficult because he had to parcel out his cheap spells for the first Mount Cellar turn, which was lackluster, but from his perspective, he needed to do just to survive. And now the second wave is a lot weaker, and from Glory, we can see there is the Savage Roar online, and if that's not available, Ysera for the turn after. Could just go for minion development with this. I also don't heal. Okay, that is huge.
Good draws. Good generation as well.
Oh, the Griffin!
A Griffin?
But
It can't kill anything!
can't, but another Griffin could. Iron Bark, Posesi, onto the Mount Cellar, just believe. Oh, okay, onto his taunt. I mean, even if the Griffin doesn't kill anything, it could soften something up. I don't know about leaving it at 1 health there. It seems so susceptible to Moonfires, etc.
Well, the thinking is that he can protect the Mount Cellar for another turn this way. It seems incredibly optimistic.
I meant, why not trade the Griffin preempt?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I don't mind taunting up something other than the Mount Cellar. I think it makes sense.
It takes a lot of resources just to kill 1 minion, but Glory is more than happy to do it.
Yeah. But the ultimate refill for next turn, Ysera, available on curve, whereas Posesi is not even running the card. And with both Mount Cellars used, he's reliant pretty much on just the Glowfly in order for him to maintain some type of board presence.
And there's no Ysera in the deck for Posesi, so he doesn't have that as an out. The only real threats left are the double Glowfly in the bottom 9. Or the single Glowfly, sorry.
Single,
Yes,
yeah.
of course. It
Just doesn't seem like it gets there, does it?
does not.
But he's got to dig for something, so this off, he could heal his face with Crystal Power and then go for Overflow so as not to overdraw.
And here just come all the cheap spells in the deck that he wanted to combo with the Mount Cellars earlier.
Oh, man.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
He's scrabbling, but he has this Fog Beam for now. Problem is, I couldn't even say that maybe you hope for Ysera to whiff a couple turns in, but there's just 6 cards left in Glory's deck, and the Ysera shuffles 7. So it is more likely than not to summon at least 1 dragon, and Posesi would take a turn to develop Glowfly if it even comes off the top.
Exactly. Posesi is scrabbling Gia, but Glory is monopolizing this series.
Not 100% over. If the draw off this Wild Growth is the Glowfly's farm, could still have the mana to play it this turn for full board development and Power of the Wild. And if Glory's own dragons don't have Rush, then maybe he could pull a win out of nowhere with the Savage Roars. Wait. He just goes for it, right?
Glowfly and then buff. Does he
Right.
trade first is the question. If he trades, he can go Crystal Power, Moonfire, Moonfire, if he would rather do that than the Power of the Wild, but that seems worse.
I mean, we can see that Glory showing 9, the Savage Roar is another 6, plus the Hero Power is 16. Not lethal yet, but Posesi's worried about double Savage Roar potentially.
For no one.
Actually, you know what? I think you are supposed to trade. You can go trade, play the Glowfly, and then just buff it with the Power of the Wild next turn. You still have enough mana.
Well, this play technically puts more attack on board instead if he buffs it right now. I don't think he had a good way of playing around double Savage Roar. I don't mind Leap. But I see your point. The trade right now damages the taunt, so he probably gets more damage in the next turn. That Malagos
Right.
is a yikes. Oh, double roar! That's lethal! What? Oh no!
Posesi
Posesi
just
was
gave his opponent that chance. Gia, you can just see how that broke Posesi. He knows he should have just cleared it off at the end. And then he had a real shot at just winning the game. That is the first discreet, obvious, large misplay I think we've seen from Posesi so far.
Agreed. It is pretty heartbreaking to see. And even make an argument for immediately buffing there because Glory himself is not running Starfall. So really tough decisions at the end there. And commiserations to Posesi because Glory just kind of had the ideal draws game after.
Oh, yeah.
But still, there was something he could have done there at the end to at least bring himself up to a 1-2 score. But that will mean Glory is at 3-0. Yet another sweep. I think he's taken mostly sweeps ever since the round started. And he's at 4-0 in match score. Can anyone stop this man?
Yeah, you're going to have to be playing a lot better than that if you want to be taking down Glory so far. Taking a look at the schedule, we can see what else we have to come here today. And I do just want to say again that it's brutal to see here the pressure getting to these players. And again, the rope ending, the rope just really stressing out Posesi there. But this is, again, the weak point for these players. It's getting down to the rope and just not thinking things through quickly enough there. And it breaks my heart to see because I think Posesi is truly so much better than that and could have got himself up to at least a chance of getting up to 3-1 overall, because after the mirror is out of the way, he has 2 good matchups against the Druid left. He was in with a really not that unfavored at all chance of taking the win. Grueling stuff.
Indeed. But we are going to move on to our next match soon. We're going to see our third Japanese player, Alutemu, completing the trifecta of some of the most dominant players in the region up against Kin. After I've heard more about Priest, I'm beginning to see the light about how the strategy works, but I would love to see Kin actually put the theory into practice, see if he's leaving Warrior up at all, and whether the Priest can actually prey on it.
Yeah, I'm becoming more and more a fan of the Galakrond Warrior over the Galakrond Priest, I should say, instead of the Resurrect Priest. Not a fan of Galakrond